It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview Kaitlyn Kelly, who is the Army Assistant Women's Rugby Coach. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Brendan. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Can you talk about how you got started in your college coaching career?
Yes, so I actually started playing rugby when I first got to West Point, and then after I graduated, I actually had to stay at West Point because I had to have a couple of surgeries before I went off into active duty Army. And when I was there, the head coach, who is still the head coach today, he asked me to just jump on. It was still a club team at the time, and he asked me to help out and kind of help him get his feet wet because it was his first year as the new head coach. And so, I never thought that I would be someone who would want to coach because I just loved playing as much as I did. But after the first game, when I realized I was the most nervous I had ever been for any playing sporting event, I realized that I did have a passion for it. So I kind of stuck with it. And, 10 years later, weird to think about, but 10 years later, here we are kind of full circle. Manifested my dream job over COVID lockdown, just had the opportunity to interview and go through the selection process and just where the program is heading and the direction that it's heading. The head coach decided to take a chance, and I'm really lucky to have this opportunity.
That's so amazing. What was your experience like in college playing rugby?
Yeah, so I had never played rugby prior to college, and when I tried out for the team my freshman year, or plebe year as we call it at West Point, um, the first practice we were sprinting and we were tackling, and I just kind of fell in love with it and fell in love with the sheer physicality and athleticism of the game. We were still a club team because we weren't NCAA at the time, but we had, just the most amazing group of girls. And it really was like a family. We were extremely successful. My junior year, 2011, we won the 15s national championship in it was San Francisco in Stanford. And then later that year in May, we won the Collegiate Rugby Championship, which is a sevens tournament. So going back to back, winning those championships was absolutely incredible. And that year we got to go over to England and play the British All Army All Stars, and kind of that experience as a whole too just kind of bonded our group. Um, but yeah, no, playing in college was just it's everyone says it's like the glory days, but it really was some of the best playing experiences of my life.
Can you talk about, of course, how your playing experience has shaped you into the coach you become?
Yeah, definitely. So, you tend to look at things a little differently when you're playing the game than when and you're in the action than when you take a step outside and you look at it from a third party neutral view because you're not making the same decisions as the person who's in that position is making, and vice versa. So understanding the game, of course, when you play it helps to have that experience for the last 10 years, getting into a coaching position, having the knowledge of how the individual who's, actually playing the game would feel. And so, as a coach, it's really about management of personnel. And during practice is definitely the time where we focus on teaching the fundamentals and the basic things that at the end of the day are still important. And as a player, I always valued those as well. I always put in the work. And so when I see, my cadets or my players doing that, I know that they care and I know that they're bought in. So as a coach that used to be a player, you learn to recognize a lot of these characteristics in these kids, and then use them to the team's advantage, and know what type of person that they are, and know what type of player they are, because you've played with them in the past, or you played with those type of people in the past. So it really does help in terms of like player management, how to structure a practice because you know what you like as a player. And then just the overall knowledge of the game. When you play something, you understand those experiences a little bit better than someone who hasn't really ever played that sport before.
What was your time like playing with Southern Pine and Fort Bragg?
I was really lucky after I graduated, I branched field artillery, and then for that I had to go to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, for about 8 months and train prior to me going to my duty station. So it was interesting because Oklahoma did have some rugby, but I wasn't able to play because I was just so busy with what I had to do with the Army. And I was kind of behind in my year group because I hadn't had those surgeries, because I put them off until after graduation because I wanted to play rugby and I wanted to graduate with my class. From there, I went to North Carolina. Love North Carolina, so I'm very jealous that you live there full time. But um, when I was at Bragg, they have a post team, and so being able to kind of play with other active duty individuals and play with spouses of active duty, individuals there, and it really was. It showed me a different side of rugby that I didn't necessarily have when I went through West Point. It showed me more of the social aspect in terms of having to fundraise and having to build this kind of grassroots club up. And so all the experience that I learned from Bragg women's rugby, I took when I moved out and bought a house in Southern Pines. And Southern Pines has a fantastic men's rugby program. And with like the leadership on the men's team, they wanted to expand into the women's side because they saw the potential of the individuals that were in the area. And so just, I remember the first meeting being at Southern Pines brewery, and the guys just sitting down and going, what can we do to help? And they were just incredible in their support, and that allyship is really helpful when it comes to growing the game of women's rugby. And so with that, the first thing, of course, was fundraising, was getting girls, was getting the ability to practice. And the first year we played a lot of scrimmages. And then the second year they actually were able to enter the conference. And, it was a unique experience being on that side of the house and understanding what it had to take in terms of logistics, administration, monetarily, all the things that go into a club. And so it was, I had unique experiences with both clubs, but both clubs have fantastic girls and have a fantastic program. And what they're doing for the women's game in North Carolina especially for military members, is huge.
What are some of the accomplishments that you've achieved so far at Army?
It's coaching or playing.
Coaching and then playing.
So coaching or playing. So won the 2011 national championship every year since I was there. 2008, 2012, we made it to the tournament afterwards. 2010, we lost to Penn State in the Final Four, and that kind of lit a fire under us, and we're like, oh, we're never losing again. And so that next year, 2011, we went undefeated. The only team we lost to was British Army when we were over there in London, but we were the only American team to score on them, so I consider that a win. But they were, some of the most athletic specimen of women you'll ever meet in your life. But after that, won the CRCs, and we beat Navy, which is an accomplishment in itself. Every year, senior year we did lose them. It was my last game, and it's probably like the worst memory of my life. But so going into coaching, and then I hate talking about individual awards, but individual, my senior year when I was captain, I also made the Collegiate All Stars or All Americans, and got to go down to Lakeland, Florida, and train with some of the best rugby players in the world. People who actually are selected. Um, Going over to Spain right now and playing sevens. People that were selected on the World Cup team. So to kind of see that the people that I played against for all 4 years and how amazing that they're doing and how they're still kicking butt. It's really cool to see, and it doesn't make me feel as old as I feel sometimes. And then coaching, so it's been tough because of COVID. So we haven't had a full season. We've been trying to find teams to play, and so we did end up playing Navy was our only game last semester, and we went to Navy on Halloween, and we beat them 39-0. So kind of having that memory of losing to them my senior year in the back of my head did give me a little bit of motivation when I was going through practice and when coach and I were running the girls. But come game time, I mean, they did it all themselves, and they played incredible for not having played a game in over a year. So as of right now, that's been my biggest accomplishment because I'm still fresh in this position. But I hope to put a lot more tallies in the win column for Navy. And then basically, my biggest wish is just to do everything that I can to prepare these girls for life outside of West Point and as a future Army officer. Rugby is only a little bit of it, but I really want to be there and help them, develop as a cadet, develop as a person, and kind of be very well rounded at the end of the day.
What is a day in the life of a college athlete that plays rugby?
So it's a little unique at West Point. So I can only speak on that experience, but they wake up, so they have the first 2 hours periods off for lifts on they do right now because they're in season. They're going to be doing 3-day lifts, 3-week lifts, and so they have the first. So they usually wake up around probably 5. They have to be in the indoor stadium because it's still cold out. So they'll do some sprints, do some conditioning before they lift. At about 5:30, they start in the morning, and then they go into the weight room around 6, and they lift until about 7 in the morning. They grab breakfast, and then they have the free time until their first class starts around 8:39. From there, they have class until lunch. Lunch is like a family style in this giant building. It's called the mess hall, and they'll have team tables, so they'll sit with the other members of their team. And then afterwards, they have class usually until about 4 p.m. or 1600. They come down on the bus to the complex and they practice from 5 to 7. Sometimes girls have, the afternoon off, so they'll come down extra for extra like individual skill stuff, and they'll work on like their kicking or their specific position skill set. And then after that, they go back up, they grab dinner, and then they do homework until about 10 or 11 at night, and then go to bed and usually wake up and do the same thing. And mix in, they have morning inspections for their rooms, so they got to get that ready. They had a Saturday morning inspection a couple weeks ago, so they had to take a whole Saturday morning cleaning their room, and then get expected. And so, it's really unique in the experience and the fact that they have to balance being an NCAA rugby player. They have to balance being a student athlete and then balance being a cadet because they still have certain military requirements that they need to do as well.
Can you talk about, of course, what a typical game day would look like?
So if it's a Friday game day or Friday game night, Friday night lights, they'll go to school until about noon. After that, they'll come down. They'll start putting the field together. With what we do on the team, we really, we really like to put it on them to get their stuff ready, and we don't just make the managers do it. So all the girls will go out. They'll put the chains up around the field, or put the posts, put the pads on the posts, get all the game balls ready. If the trainer needs help with anything, help her. And then they're in their locker room and they're kind of getting ready to um, just get their minds right. Same thing with the Saturday morning game, and if they need to get breakfast, they eat some breakfast. About 2 hours out of game, they start doing treatment if they need treatment from the athletic trainer. Um, they'll start doing taping, and then about an hour out from the game, we'll go in. We'll have a conversation with them, kind of go over what we want and what we want to see, and then we'll start doing pregame warm up stuff. We'll split into forwards and backs. So the backs will run, and I take the backs and we'll run different plays. We'll look at different set pieces and different things they might see um, from the team on the pitch. We'll work on kicking, work on catching, just get their hands warm and their minds in the game. Forwards will do we'll work on more of the line outs and the scrums, and more of the specific position specific things there. And then, about 10 minutes to kick off, they'll go to the locker room, throw on their jersey, and come out, do the national anthem, and then it's go time. We break it down in the huddle, and then it's on them for the rest of the game.
What are some of the similarities and differences between, of course, soccer, football, and then rugby?
So we always like to joke that rugby is the father of football because we feel like football gets a lot of their rules from rugby, which is true. But rugby actually started because Webb Ellis was playing a soccer or football game, an English football game, and actually it's called rugby school in England, and he picked the soccer ball up and just started running with it, and people just started tackling him, and so that's kind of where the game came about. So a lot of what rugby is about is the continuous running, and the position specific, uh, like athletes, like soccer and like football. But it's not like football in the fact that it's like soccer and where it's for 80 minutes you're running. You might stop if the ball goes out of bounds, or we do a line out, which is like a throw in, but we lift the people up instead of just tossing it on the ground. And then, of course, with the scrum, getting down to the middle and just having bodies push against one another, trying to win that ball. Um, with football, it's, the physicality of it. Um, the rugby tackles actually are a lot safer than football. We don't have pads. We don't have we have mouthpieces, and we maybe have some scrum caps, but at the end of the day, like that's all our protection. So we really have to train them to tackle properly, so that they don't hurt anybody else and they don't hurt themselves. The head game, of course, the CTs are extremely important. The Seattle Seahawks actually brought in Serevi, which is a Fijian Rugby Sevens legend, and they went over proper tackling techniques. And so you can actually really tell the difference if you ever watch a Seattle Seahawk football game and the Legion of Boom and see how aggressive they are and how they tackle properly. Um, the other thing would be what's really unique about rugby is that I think it's the only sport where both the men and women's game is exactly the same. The ball we use, the size of the pitch, the rules, it's exactly the same. So the physicality, you see the tackles and you see the bone crushing. It's the same of the men and the same as the women. So I always tell the girls, like, I can teach you the fundamentals of tackling, but I cannot teach you how to tackle in terms of like wanting to tackle. So, but it's a fantastic sport. It's nonstop, and it's so much fun to watch.
Can you talk about, of course, the culture that you have helped build at Army for rugby?
Yeah, so it definitely started when I was there as a player. And now as a coach, we actually these past 2 weeks we've been doing a lot of culture meetings, and culture talks. So when I was here as a player, women's army rugby war, declare war, that was our thing. And that was started from 2002 was the first team at West Point. So we really tapped into like the sisterhood and the legacy. And so now they still talk about the legacy, and they're getting back into what it meant to be a war player, to be a women's army rugby player, and I have a lot of girls on the team that love culture and that love to think about like where we came from and where we are now. And it makes you feel proud as someone who was on the team, invested in it as a player, and then who's now, a coach. Um, and so I mean, it really is just about sisterhood, and it's there is a general who was a commandant at West Point, and General Linnington, and he said that rugby is probably the most similar sport to combat you'll ever see. And it's because it's nonstop. It's because you make these decisions and you have to trust that your sister to your left and your right is going to be there for you. That when you get tackled, that they're going to be, above you and they're going to be protecting you on the ground. And you have to just follow through with every decision that you make, and just, no matter what happens, you have to think two steps ahead, and just the trust that's within that. It's just something that's been built on. And so with the girls now, they're really taking it in stride, and they are making it their own. And they're kind of creating their own legacy. And that's, I did what I did when it was a club sport to get it to the level that it is now. And so what they're doing now is going to propel the team, to another level. There's this great poem that's like, everything that I do so that my sisters can stand on my shoulders and see farther than I ever have. And that's truly what it's about. And, it's about rugby. It's about the game, but it's also about the family and the united aspect of a group of awesome, tenacious, badass females that come together, work towards a common goal, and have fun. So it's really cool to see it happening on the other side of the house.
What advice would you give upcoming high school athletes looking to play rugby in college?
I would say just get as much playing time as you can. Try and go to as many tournaments as you can. I know it's tough right now with COVID, but try and get as much film of your games as you can, because you are your biggest advocate, and in selecting individuals, and as coaches, and looking at potential future players for teams, and recruits. It's important to have um, you know, kind of a playbook of yourself. And there's this one of my players, she created an entire website on herself to send out to coaches, and to like highlight. And it was, pictures of her and her family. It was a background of everything that she's done that's not rugby, because that's important too. What you do not on the pitch is important to us as coaches. And it showed her academic side, or academic grades, and her how she excelled in the classroom, as well as the other sports that she played. And it was basically a resume, but the kids nowadays love everything online, so it literally was a website highlighting just everything about her, and it was so well done, that something like that stands out and sticks out to a coach. So I would just say, be your biggest advocate and continue to get game time and challenge yourself. And if there's no other high school teams around you, go play for a women's team, and at least practice with them. If you're under 18 and you can't play in the games, at least like go and practice with them and challenge yourself, because that's the only way you're going to get better, is if you step outside of the box, and grow outside of your comfort zone.
That's wonderful advice. What advice would you give upcoming college coaches looking to get started?
Um, I would say, you know, don't be afraid to go after what you want. Um, no one came to me for the job. No one like sent me an email and was like, "Hey, Kaitlyn, do you want this job?" I went out and I, spoke it into existence, and I set goals down. As soon as I graduated, and as soon as I was done coaching, as like for like an assistant coach for a little bit after I graduated, I was like, I want to come back here. This is my dream job. I want to come back as assistant, and I want to, learn more, and hopefully eventually in the future, like one day, run my like be a head coach of my own team. And so I, wrote it down, and I wrote down how I was going to get there. everything that I was going to do leading up to that. And, whether it was doing the educational courses that you needed to do. So like a level 300 coaching clinic through USA Rugby, or doing a level 100 like reffing course, and then also, continuing to coach throughout your time. So I coached in DC, I coached the high school girls, and I continuing to look for those opportunities to coach again, self-advocate, to put on your resume. And then just go after it. Just go get it. If you want it, go get it. Don't hold back. I sent an email and I said, I'd love to have the opportunity to talk to you. And I just went for it. So many times, I mean, people, I think, just hold back because they're afraid or they're nervous of getting rejected. And, I thought to myself, I was like, what is the worst thing that could happen? They tell me no. Okay. I've heard no before. But I can't take not knowing. I'll take a no, but I can't take not knowing. So that would definitely be my advice.
That's wonderful advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media, along with Army's women's rugby program at?
Yeah, so I'll have to. So I am on Twitter. I don't remember my handle off the top of my head. I just created it for the position, but I think it's at Coach K Army Rugby. And then Facebook, I'm on Kaitlyn T. Kelly, and then I had on West Point Women's Rugby. We have an Instagram, Women's Army Rugby. You can keep up with the girls, everything that they do. I like I like to highlight our social media person's awesome, Erin. So shout out to Erin, but she she does this really cool thing where she does like type 5, and it's like a round of 5 questions for the girls, and so they answer. So like not only can people that want to come to West Point or family members that are involved and can't see their cadets can look at them. So that's at Women's Army Rugby. And then on Facebook, we're West Point Women's Army Rugby as well. So we'll live stream home games. The Navy game is up there. So if you want to go back and watch the Navy game, you can watch the Navy game. And it's just, something, again, since the cadets can't leave, it's something for their families to look at. It's something for, potential person that wants to come and play at West Point can look at and kind of see the personality of the team as well.
That's wonderful. Thank you again, Kaitlyn, for your interview, and best of luck in this upcoming season.
Thank you so much, Brandon. I hope you have a great day.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Kaitlyn, for your interview, and best of luck.
Thank you. You too, sir.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.